Zillow flips on the housing market once again as they revise their home price forecast downward by 2%, noting that skyrocketing inventory and a continued lack of buying demand has surprised them. Now, here's some additional surprising facts. According to a recent Zillow survey, approximately 78% of homeowners right now that are selling are distressed sales, with the homeowners having some type of life event happening that is forcing them to sell, whether it be unemployment or unaffordability. Now, on top of those listings, we're getting additional listings from the fact that the golden handcuff effect is starting to unravel, and more homeowners are starting to find incentives to sell their property and cash in on their equity if they're lucky enough to have any. And what's also interesting is many of these sellers are turning into renters, as renting is now generally much more beneficial than owning. In the past, roughly 75% of the people that were selling their homes repurchased a home, but right now it's slightly over 50%. Unaffordability is being felt through all fronts of the housing market in every single nation by renters, investors, and homeowners who purchased before and after 2022. You guys, it's a big difference. The biggest difference being equity and quantitative tightening. By now, most of the nation has figured out it's never been a more toxic, unaffordable, worse time to buy a home than it is now, and it has over the last 3 years, which begs the question, will 2025 have a worse housing market crash than 2008? And as consumers, what can we do right now to prepare to potentially find the deal of our dreams? And welcome back to Real Estate Mindset. If you guys can do me a favor, as always, please like this video, comment below, share the video, and let me know what you guys are seeing out there in your housing markets, because what I really want to talk about before we jump into Zillow and everything that Zillow has to say is, remember, when it comes to the housing market and knowing whether or not you're getting a good deal, use the math, not your emotions, and understand overall houses right now are incredibly overpriced still when we compare to median household income. So with that said, still, if you're going to buy, use the math and understand it's about hyper local analysis. You're going to want to see what homes have sold for in the property or subject properties subdivision. You guys, I have free courses on how to do that. And if you're already a homeowner, don't forget, we also have a free course. We just completed it on how to end property tax, which would benefit us all. But regardless, you guys, again, like the video, enjoy the video, and I hope to hear from you. Let's start with Zillow's flip-flopping by taking a look at this article, which is titled Zillow Home Value and Home Sales Forecast for February 2025. And let's read a couple bullet points here. Zillow's latest forecast anticipates home value growth in 2025 to be weaker than previously expected, with existing home sales projected to rise, but only slightly compared to 2024. And remember, 2024 and 2023 have been some of the worst years on records as far as home sales. So they're saying it's not going to get much better. Although mortgage rates may moderately decrease by the end of the year, any changes likely will be minimal, keeping the lid on buying demand. Zillow forecasts home values to increase by just 0.9% this year. This is a drop from a previous expectation of 2.9%. So they revised this by 2%. That is a major revision. And this is why new listings were higher than expected out of the gate this year, and inventory expectations that were revised higher have put downward pressure on Zillow's forecast for home growth. Existing home sales are forecasted to reach 4.11 million units in 2025, consistent with last month's outlook, with little relief in sight for mortgage rates. Existing home sales trends are expected to closely mirror those of 2023 and of 2024, remaining below pre-pandemic levels and well below those levels. As the home buying season approaches, a near-term decline in sales is anticipated before a potential seasonal uptick in spring. This goes on. As elevated mortgage rates dampen demand for home purchases, many potential buyers are staying renters for longer. Zillow forecasts a 3.7% increase for single-family rents in 2025, which if you're a renter, like I'm a renter, that kind of sucks, but better we waste a little bit of money renting than a lot of bit of money wastefully purchasing and recklessly purchasing a home right now. While multifamily rents are projected to rise by only 3.1%, with apartment construction slowing, the growth rates for single family and multifamily rents are expected to converge more closely than in recent years. So let's take a look at Fred economic data, housing inventory. This is active unit count for existing inventory for January. So right now we're sitting at 829,376 units. The reason I'm bringing this up is remember, right before we had the lockdown in January of 2020, which is generally the lowest year or lower time of year to have inventory, we were sitting at 951,000 active listings. I believe, and I'll explain why here in a second, that in 2025, we will exceed pre-pandemic inventory. In fact, a lot of people don't realize we already did exceed it in September of 2024, but that went down in December of 2024. So we hit it. The key is this: to maintain it. When we talk about the new home market, which is vastly different than existing homes, new home market is being ravaged right now by skyrocketing inventory and a lack of demand. The amount of incentives and data fraud that's going on right now with new homes is absolutely shocking. But the months of supply right now for new homes is 8.5 months, and that is underreported. I'm telling you guys right now, I'm going out to these communities. I'm seeing for myself, they are underreporting how much inventory they have. But we have been over 6 months of inventory for years. If you're going to go buy a new home right now, ask for the world. The inventory has been skyrocketing and has maintained a buyer's market for a substantial period of time. Here's the important thing to understand. How does inventory and how is inventory going to impact potentially home prices? Now, let's assume that demand is going to stay the same. If demand stays the same and inventory continues to increase, the next thing that's going to happen is days on market will also increase. And the more desperate or in distress a seller is, the more likely it is that they're going to do a real price cut. So what you have here is, again, as long as the demand stays the same, like we're seeing, inventory is going to skyrocket. Days on market is going to go up because of the competition, which is going to lead to price cuts, which is going to lead to prices going down. But again, in order to determine that, you need to be able to review sold comparables in subject properties. And don't make the mistake in assuming what I'm telling you is it's time to buy right now. We have a lot of room to go. The housing market, again, I'm going to tell you, is incredibly overpriced. So the second question I want to ask you as the viewers is do you think in 2025 that we will maintain a level of inventory that exceeds pre-pandemic, that 920,000? Personally, I do. And the reason I do is because there's more and more incentives for people to sell their house, like skyrocketing property taxes, especially in places like Texas and Florida, skyrocketing homeowners insurance and HOA fees. The cost to own a house right now is completely ridiculous, with layoffs on the horizon and the fact that inventory is skyrocketing. I personally believe that we're going to enter and exit 2025 with more inventory than when we started the pandemic. That's what I think. I'm interested to know what you think. Now, let's get into the second part of this video. Now we're going to do some really mind-blowing facts by taking a look at Zillow's housing market report for January of 2025, titled "Sellers Ramp Up Price Cuts to Woo Struggling Buyers," January 2025 market report. Now, a few interesting things here. I think you guys are going to be surprised to hear. Persistently high mortgage rates are having a bigger impact on buyers than on sellers as home shopping season approaches. Though competitive varies greatly by region, remember, it's very bifurcated housing market. That's why research in your local housing market is important. However, this is saying most buyers in the market today have a good chance of seeing a price cut on their saved listing. Nearly 23% of listings received a price cut in January alone. That's a record high in Zillow data for this time of year. So price cuts are skyrocketing. Rate lock holds appear to be losing its grip as homeowners find themselves in a solid financial position and ready to move on, even if it means taking a price cut on their listing. Home equity is near highs, and the general economy and financial markets are surprisingly strong. Now, as far as home equity, that's not true if you purchased after 2022. If you purchased before, yeah, you should have a lot of equity. Buyers, on the other hand, are feeling the sting of mortgage rates that ticked up to 7.04% in January. That's the highest level seen since May and significantly higher than the mid 6% rates seen this time last year. Rates gave buyers facing affordability challenges stronger headwinds in closing the deal. Newly pending sales fell 3.6% year over year. So it's surprising that they're saying that sales are going to be higher, being that we're starting off the year with sales lower. Now, listen to this. This is what sellers are saying. Sellers appear less impacted by rate movements than buyers. New listings hitting the market from existing owners rose. This is great. 11.5% year over year. We need new listings. As homeowners rack up equity and encounter pressing needs to sell, their current homes and mortgage rates are easier or even necessary to let go of. According to who? Zillow? Now, this is interesting as well. Zillow's survey of recent sellers show 78% were influenced to sell by life events. The same survey found just 54% of sellers bought a home. That's the lowest share since 2024 and down from 70% last year. These are big changes in the housing market. Despite the challenges for buyers, plenty of sellers are getting more than they asked for. Nearly 25% of homes that sold in December, the latest data available, did so for more than the original asking price. That's compared to about 19% before the pandemic. So some housing markets are still tight and aggressive. Don't forget that. You got to do your local research. Now, listen to this. This is what buyers are saying. While high rates are frustrating buyers, buyers have a good chance to find deals with margin. So that's wedge under market value. The cash flow is the hard part. Zillow's market heat index shows buyers have more power in negotiating than any January over the past 5 years. The housing market is changing, y'all. Price cuts are most common in Phoenix, where they're found on 33.5% of listings. Go Phoenix. Tampa, 32.4% of listings. Jacksonville, Florida, 30.8%. Orlando, 29.1%, and Dallas at 28.7%. Nationally, homes that sell are typically under contract in 38 days. That's 9 days slower than last year, but nearly 10 days faster than pre-pandemic norms. However, regional variations in competition is massive. Again, the bifurcation. Homes are selling in 2 weeks or less in expensive coastal metro areas like San Jose, Boston, Seattle, and Washington, D.C., although layoffs are impacting that. And far more slowly in the South, like New Orleans, Atlanta, Texas, and Florida metros, with the most relaxed pace of sales. Let's look at some really interesting information when it comes to home values. Now, starting with the month over month, home values climbed month over month in just one of the 50 largest metro areas, which was San Jose. So only one of 50 metro areas went up last month. Look at the second one here. Home values fell on a monthly basis in 48 of 50 metro areas. The largest monthly drops were in Buffalo at 1.1%, and then Tampa at 0.8%, and Austin at 0.8%. Now, take a look at the year over year, which is much different than the month over month. It's easier to remove seasonality when you look at the year over year, but it's harder to see recent trends. So year over year, home values went up in 41 of 50 of the largest metro areas. So not in every one. Now, the number one was San Jose at 8.1. Number two, Providence at 6.7. Cleveland at 6.6. Now, home values went down year over year in 8 major metro areas. The biggest leading metro areas, you guys already know, Austin, which was down 3.4%. It's actually down 26% from peak in 2022. It is crashing in Austin. Tampa's down 2.8% year over year, and San Antonio, Texas as well, down 1.8% year over year, probably because Texas is leading the way with new construction. Now, listen to this, guys. The typical mortgage payment is up 6% from last year. You're probably thinking, how is that possible? Being that it's up 115%. That's right. Triple-digit increase since pre-pandemic. Ouch, if you bought a home recently. And that's probably not including taxes and insurance, which is up even more than that, depending on the metro area. A few more things here, guys. Inventory and new listings. New listings increased by a whopping, this is shocking, 60.7% month over month in January. New listings increased 11.5% this month compared to last year. New listings are 16.2% lower than pre-pandemic levels. Not in Texas, not in Florida, but when we add everything together, yes. So again, this is going back into the fact that there are some areas that are really, really in trouble here because of the lack of inventory. Take a look at the price cuts. 22.8% of listings in January had price cuts. That's compared to 17.2% in January and 20.8% in January of 2024. So again, I go back and saying there's a ton of things that are finally changing in the housing market. But when we ask the question, is the housing market this year in 2025 going to be worse than 2008? Overall, I'm going to just say right now, you guys, I don't think it's going to be worse this year than 2008. I definitely think that 2025 is going to have massive cracks around the nation, but I think it's going to be potentially worse into 2026 and into 2027. And if you really want to compare housing market crashes, we're really going to have to do that next year in 2026. Now, when we ask the question as consumers, what can we do right now to potentially prepare to buy the deal of our dreams? Here's what we should do, you guys. Now, my situation is this. I've been waiting 3 years to find a home of my dreams. I've had to redefine my life. I've had to maintain patience. What we want to be doing right now is maintain patience, and we want to track our markets. We want to understand the math, take my free home buying courses, get up to date on all of the tricks in real estate. So educate yourself. Don't use your emotion, use your math, and increase your FICO score. Make sure your credit score is at least 720. One of the best ways to do that is to make sure your credit card debt is paid down. Now, on top of that, you want to make sure that you're not going broke on your mortgage payment. Make sure that no more than 30% of your net income goes towards your mortgage payment. There are some loan programs like FHA that will allow 56.99% of your gross income to go towards your mortgage payment and other credit expenses. So just because you can get it doesn't mean you should. And another thing that's really important, please don't go broke moving into a house, which means save your money. You want to have a year of savings after you move in. Now, as far as down payment, it's up to you. You can go 10 to 30% down. Something that I've done in the past is to put a 10% down and then pay all of the PMI up front. Generally, that allows people to have a tax deduction. I'm not a CPA. Find out from a CPA, and gives you a lower monthly mortgage payment. But I would say the overall thing you guys need to do right now is be patient, understand the math, and take some courses. Now, before we end the video, let's go to a couple more headlines from Zillow and see what it is they're talking about. The first headline being January 2025 existing home sales dip in January, but more sellers and easing rates could set the stage for a recovery. So again, they're saying that sales are down in January, yet they're saying that sales are going to be higher this year than they were last year. They're saying elevated rates put buyers in a wait and see mode, but it's been that way for about, what would you guys say, almost 3 years? This is interesting. Off MLS home sellers left more than $1 billion on the table for the past 2 years. Listen to what this says, guys. The typical home seller who did not list their home on the multiple listing service, which generally, remember, you need a realtor for, sold their home for nearly $5,000 less. But I'm going to say this. If they saved $30,000 in realtor commissions, then who cares if they sold their house for an average of $5,000 less? You guys got to take a step back, put things in perspective. I'm upset too. I want to buy a house right now. I want to do all those things. But the more important thing is that I love my life, I love my family, and I continue to strengthen my purchasing power. There are millions of people right now that are losing their purchasing power and are drowning in credit card debt. Make sure you're not one of them, because the best deals of our lifetime could be right around the corner. Now, other than that, guys, don't forget to go to realeestatemindset.org, take the free courses. It will be linked in the description. We have the End Property Tax course we just made by Mitch Vexler. Be sure to check that out. And if you guys are out there investing in the housing market, you guys already know I wish you luck, and I hope you win.